All right, so today we're going to be looking at something pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah.
And that is Michel de Montaigne's philosophy.
Oh, very cool.
And we're going to be specifically looking at how his idea of not caring can actually lead to a more fulfilling life.
Okay.
Now, before you think we're advocating for apathy,
Right.
let me assure you it's not that simple.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
Okay, good.
Montaigne wasn't about indifference.
Yeah.
He was all about like strategically choosing what to care about.
Right.
And the source material for this deep dive is this really insightful YouTube video by the Psyche titled "When You Stop Caring, Everything Falls into Place: Michel de Montaigne's Philosophy."
Okay.
And it kind of breaks down how this 16th century philosopher's ideas are surprisingly relevant even now.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because you think 16th century philosopher, like how could that possibly apply to me today? But one of the things that really stood out to me in the video
was Montaigne's take on external validation. He basically said that seeking constant approval from others is like building your own mental prison.
Wow, that's such a powerful image. Right?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so true, though.
It's almost like we become trapped by other people's perceptions.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. How often do you make decisions based on what you think other people expect of you?
All the time.
Or avoid doing something you love because you fear judgment?
All the time. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
The video explains that when you stop seeking validation, you actually become more attractive to others. It's like that inner confidence kind of shines through.
It's counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But there's a psychological basis for it.
Yeah.
When you're not constantly seeking approval, you project this like aura of self-assurance that people find magnetic.
Yeah.
Instead of needing validation, you radiate it.
So it's not about becoming indifferent to what others think. It's about shifting your focus from external validation to inner strength and self-acceptance.
And that shift can be incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
Montaigne believed that this like pursuit of external validation just keeps us stuck in a cycle of anxiety and insecurity.
Yeah.
We're constantly trying to please others to fit into some mold that we think will make us worthy of love or success.
Yeah, and you never feel like you're quite.
But the irony is the more we chase approval, the more elusive it becomes.
That's so true.
Yeah.
The video used an analogy that I thought was really It's like we're swimming against the current.
Yeah.
Exhausting ourselves trying to control things we can't. Montaigne's philosophy is about learning to dance with the current instead. But how do we do that? How do we actually stop caring about things that on some level we've been conditioned to care about?
That's where Montaigne's concept of detachment comes in.
Okay.
And it's important to clarify what he meant by that.
He wasn't advocating for emotional detachment or apathy.
Yeah.
He was talking about releasing the need to control everything and everyone around us.
Right.
It's about accepting the world as it is.
Okay.
Imperfections and all.
So instead of trying to force things to go our way, we learn to adapt and find peace amidst the chaos.
Exactly.
It almost sounds like a form of surrender.
Yeah.
But not in a weak way. More like a strategic letting go.
Exactly. Imagine holding a bird tightly in your hand.
Okay.
The harder you squeeze, the more likely it is to struggle and potentially get hurt.
Yeah.
But if you open your hand and allow it the space to be free, it might just choose to stay perched on your finger.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Yeah.
And it highlights how our need to control can actually push away the very things we desire.
Yeah.
Whether it's in our relationships, our careers, or even our creative pursuits.
And I think that's one of the most powerful aspects of Montaigne's philosophy. He encourages us to question our assumptions.
Okay.
Why are we so obsessed with control?
Right.
What are we afraid of letting go of? And what might become possible if we simply allowed things to unfold naturally?
Those are great questions.
Yeah.
And that brings us to another key aspect of Montaigne's philosophy.
Okay.
Embracing imperfection.
Okay.
And uncertainty.
Yeah.
It seems like he was really ahead of his time in recognizing that trying to achieve some flawless ideal is a recipe for misery.
Absolutely.
Right.
Montaigne believed that striving for absolute perfection is a fool's errand.
Yeah.
Life is inherently messy, unpredictable, and full of surprises. And that's okay. In fact, he argued that it's in those imperfections and unexpected moments that we discover true beauty and meaning.
I love that. Yeah. It's such a refreshing perspective in a world that's constantly bombarding us with images of perfection.
It's like he's giving us permission to be human, to make mistakes, to stumble, to embrace our flaws and imperfections as part of what makes us unique and interesting.
I love that.
And you know what? He actually saw a connection between embracing imperfection and finding freedom.
Okay. I'm really intrigued now.
Yeah.
How does letting go of perfection lead to a greater sense of freedom?
Think about it this way. When you're constantly striving for some unattainable ideal, you're essentially a prisoner of your own expectations.
Right.
But when you release that need for everything perfect, when you embrace the messiness of life, you free yourself from those self-imposed limitations.
Like taking a deep breath and finally letting go of all the tension you've been holding on to.
Totally.
So we've talked about letting go of the need for external validation.
Right.
And embracing imperfection. But I'm curious, how does this not caring philosophy actually play out in our relationships with others?
That's a great question and a perfect segue into the next part of our where we'll explore Montaigne's surprising perspective on how detachment can actually lead deeper, more.
This is really making me rethink some things. Stay tuned, folks, because we're about to unpack how Montaigne's not caring can actually lead to stronger, more authentic relationships.
It's pretty cool. It's counterintuitive for sure.
Yes, totally. So we're back, and we're really diving into, I think, what might be the most intriguing part of Montaigne's philosophy.
Yeah.
If you recall, we're unpacking this idea that detachment, the kind that Montaigne advocated for, can actually foster stronger relationships. On the surface, it feels like a paradox.
It definitely challenges the conventional wisdom about relationships, right? Like we're often told that love requires constant attention, affirmation, and sometimes even a bit of like healthy possessiveness. But Montaigne kind of flips that script. He argues that by releasing the need to control our loved ones, we actually create the space for a more genuine connection to flourish.
So instead of clinging tightly, we loosen our grip. But doesn't that risk creating distance? How do we balance detachment with the desire for closeness?
That's where it gets really interesting. Remember Montaigne's definition of detachment? It isn't about becoming emotionally distant or indifferent. It's more like a shift in perspective. He used the term to describe a state of inner independence, where your happiness and sense of self aren't contingent upon the actions or opinions of others.
That makes sense. It's like that old saying, the less you need something, the more likely it is to come to you. But how does that apply to relationships? I mean, we do need connection.
We absolutely do. But Montaigne would argue that the quality of that connection is enhanced when it's not driven by neediness, insecurity, or the fear of being alone. Instead of approaching relationships from a place of lack, like I need you to complete me, we approach them from a place of wholeness.
So it's about cultivating that inner stability and sense of self first, so that we can show up in relationships as our most authentic selves without all that emotional baggage.
Precisely. Think about the people you know who are most comfortable in their own skin. The ones who aren't constantly seeking approval or validation. Aren't those individuals often the most magnetic?
It's true. There's something about that kind of self-assuredness that draws people in.
Montaigne believed that this inner strength has a profound impact on our relationships. When you're secure in yourself, you're less likely to take things personally. You don't feel threatened by your partner's independence, their different opinions, or even their flaws.
So you're not constantly reacting to their every mood. Or trying to mold them into some idealized version of themselves.
That kind of control, even if it's well-intentioned, can actually suffocate a relationship. It creates this dynamic where one person is trying to exert power over the other, which ultimately breeds resentment and distance.
But if we let go of that need to control, if we accept our partners for who they truly are, wouldn't that make us more vulnerable?
Vulnerability is definitely a part of it. But it's not the kind of vulnerability that comes from weakness or insecurity. It's the kind of vulnerability that comes from a place of strength, where you're willing to show up authentically, imperfections and all. And in doing so, you create the space for your partner to do the same.
I think that's what makes this concept of detachment so powerful.
It
allows us to connect with others on a deeper, more soul-to-soul level. We're not trying to control each other. We're simply showing up as we are with all our quirks and flaws.
And that kind of connection is far more fulfilling than anything based on manipulation or the fear of being alone.
Right.
It's a connection that's built on mutual respect, acceptance, and a shared appreciation for each other's unique individuality.
Montaigne also seemed to have this interesting take on the relationship between detachment and success. He suggested that letting go of control could actually help us achieve greater things in life. How does that work?
Yeah.
I mean, success usually requires a lot of effort planning.
Right.
And, yes, some degree of control.
Well, Montaigne wasn't suggesting we become passive or give up on our goals altogether.
Right.
His perspective was a bit more nuanced.
Okay.
He believed that our obsession with control can actually become a major obstacle to success.
That's interesting. I mean, we're all familiar with those overachievers who are so laser focused on their goals that they miss out on life's simple pleasures.
Right.
Or those entrepreneurs who micromanage every aspect of their business and end up burning themselves out.
Right.
But how does detachment play into this?
Montaigne argued that when we relinquish our rigid grip on how things should be, we open ourselves up to a wider range of possibilities. Think about it. Some of the greatest discoveries and innovations throughout history have happened by accident, by chance encounters, or by simply being open to exploring new avenues that weren't part of the original plan.
So it's not about abandoning all control.
Right.
It's about recognizing that sometimes the best way to achieve our goals is to surrender to the flow of life, to embrace the detours and unexpected opportunities that arise along the way.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's like that saying, man plans and God laughs.
Right.
We can set our intentions, we can work hard, but ultimately we have to be willing to let go of the outcome and trust that the universe has a plan for us, even if it doesn't always align with our expectations.
Okay, this is really resonating with me.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, if this philosophy of detachment is so powerful, why don't more people embrace it? Why are we so resistant to letting go?
I think it comes down to a few things.
Okay.
First, our culture tends to glorify control.
Okay.
We're taught from a young age that success comes from striving, achieving, and being in charge.
Right.
So letting go can feel like giving up or admitting defeat.
Right.
But what if it's actually the opposite? What if letting go is the key to unlocking a level of success and fulfillment that we never thought possible?
That's a powerful thought, but I imagine fear plays a role as well.
Absolutely.
We're afraid of the unknown.
Right.
Afraid of what might happen if we loosen our grip on the illusion of control.
Exactly. And that fear can be paralyzing.
Yeah.
We cling to our routines, our beliefs, and our expectations because they give us a sense of security, even if they're no longer serving us. But Montaigne reminds us that true freedom lies on the other side of that fear.
Okay.
It's in those moments when we dare to let go to embrace the unknown that we discover our true potential.
And I imagine it's not always an easy process.
Right? Oh, absolutely not.
I mean, letting go of deeply ingrained patterns and beliefs can challenge, to say the least.
It requires a willingness to challenge our assumptions, to step outside of our comfort zones, and to trust that even if things don't go according to plan, we'll be okay.
Right.
But the rewards, as we've been discussing, can be life-changing. It's about moving from a mindset of scarcity and fear to one of abundance and trust.
It seems like embracing uncertainty is a big part of this as well.
You're right. That's the next piece of the puzzle we'll explore.
Okay.
Montaigne had a lot to say about the power of embracing uncertainty and how it can actually lead to a more fulfilling and authentic life.
This is so thought-provoking.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff.
Stay tuned, folks, as we continue our deep dive into Montaigne's wisdom and explore how letting go of the need to control everything can actually be the key to unlocking a richer, more fulfilling life. Okay, so we're back and ready to kind of tackle this idea of the power of uncertainty.
Yeah.
We've been talking about Michel de Montaigne and his philosophy, and we've talked about letting go of validation and all that.
Right.
But now we're going to get into uncertainty.
It's interesting how Montaigne viewed uncertainty.
Yeah.
Not as something to fear,
right,
but as like this fundamental aspect of life to be embraced.
Right.
He even saw it as a source of freedom,
which
is really interesting.
Yeah.
It's a perspective that really challenges the modern obsession with planning, predicting and controlling every aspect of our lives.
That makes sense, though, when you think about it.
Yeah.
It's like no matter how meticulously we plan, there will always be those curveballs. And trying to micromanage every outcome can lead to a whole lot of stress and anxiety.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like you're setting yourself up for failure almost.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And Montaigne believed that this resistance to uncertainty is often what keeps us stuck. Think about those moments when you've been absolutely terrified of something. Maybe a big presentation or a difficult conversation or a major life change.
Yeah.
What happens when you finally...
Well, in my experience, it's rarely as bad as I imagined.
Right.
In fact, sometimes those moments of uncertainty lead to the most unexpected breakthroughs and opportunities.
Exactly. And that's what Montaigne was getting at. He saw uncertainty not as a threat, but as like this catalyst for growth and transformation. It's in those moments when we step outside of our comfort zones, when we embrace the unknown, that we discover hidden strengths and resilience we never knew we had.
You know, the video we're using as source material for this deep dive uses a great analogy. It compares embracing uncertainty to surfing. You can't control the waves, but you can learn to ride them. To adapt to the changing conditions. And to find a sense of exhilaration in the unpredictable nature of the experience.
That's such a vivid image, right? And it highlights the sense of agency we can find within uncertainty. It's not about passively accepting whatever life throws our way, but rather about developing a mindset and a set of skills that allow us to navigate the inevitable ups and downs with grace and even a sense of adventure.
So how do we actually cultivate that mindset? How do we move from a place of fearing the unknown to embracing it?
Well, Montaigne would argue that it starts with challenging our deeply ingrained need for certainty. Like we crave predictability because it gives us a sense of control.
Because it feels safe.
But the irony is that control is often an illusion.
It is,
The more we try to control everything, the more anxious and frustrated we become when things inevitably go awry.
So it's about recognizing that we don't have all the answers. That life is full of surprises, and that's okay.
Exactly. It's about developing a sense of trust in ourselves, in our ability to adapt and to navigate whatever challenges come our way. And in doing so, we actually become more resilient, more creative, and more open to new experiences.
It seems like it all kind of ties together. You know, when we let go of the need for external validation, we free ourselves from the pressure to conform to other people's expectations. When we embrace imperfection, we release the self-imposed pressure to be flawless. And when we embrace uncertainty, we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities that we might have otherwise missed out on.
That's a beautiful synthesis of Montaigne's philosophy. He truly believed that by relinquishing our need to control everything, we paradoxically gain a greater sense of freedom and agency. It's in that space of surrender, of acceptance, that we discover our true potential and create a life that's both meaningful and fulfilling.
It's such a powerful message, and I think it's especially relevant in today's world, where we're constantly bombarded with information, expectations, and pressures to achieve. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and to lose sight of what truly matters.
Montaigne offers a timeless antidote to that overwhelm. He reminds us that true happiness and fulfillment don't come from external achievements or position. They come from within, from cultivating a sense of inner acceptance and resilience that allows us to navigate the complexities of life with grace.
Well, this has been such a thought-provoking deep dive.
It has.
I think it's safe to say that Montaigne's philosophy offers a path to a more authentic, fulfilling, and perhaps even more successful life.
For sure.
Not by striving for some external ideal, but by letting go of our need to control and by embracing the beautiful, messy, unpredictable journey of life.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights from Montaigne's unique perspective.
Me too.
And remember, as Montaigne himself might say, the greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself.